Welcome to Mr. Camacho's YouTube channel, and this particular video is for Unit 3 Learning Targets 5 and 6. If you're retaking these learning targets, these are videos that you would want to see to help prepare for our next unit test. Now we'll start with Learning Target 5, and this is students can identify and explain urban sprawl and its characteristics. So I'll start off by identifying what is urban sprawl. Urban sprawl is the poorly planned and generally has negative effects such as pollution, loss of habitat, and traffic problems. So it's a poorly planned spread of development that has lots of other problems. In our studies in the classroom, we discussed three major cities, Portland, Toronto, and Atlanta, and we discussed all of the problems in the cities. Portland's solution to urban sprawl problem, because they were worried about the overall loss of farmland in the rural areas, and they did not want to spread their city out. So they generally drew a line or a border around the city, and if you remember, they restricted all growth outside that city. So this encouraged a lot of people to stay within the downtown area or the urban core, and it also raised the value of all the land inside of that border. Therefore, the result was Portland is one of the best laid out cities in the western part of the United States. Most of the people that live in Portland are fairly affluent, which means they have means or have plenty of wealth. It's a very clean city, and generally it does cost a little more to live there than it would in other places. In Toronto, the problem was solved with a bit of a different solution. Toronto was spreading out too much, and this was causing for there to be lots of traffic in the urban fringe area, which was leading to a pollution issue. And so Toronto's solution was to encourage infill as well as mixed-use development. They wanted to revitalize their downtown area, and so they did that through the process of infill. And so that was a solution for Toronto. Atlanta had kind of a different problem because they were growing so fast. Their growth was taking place in the rural fringe, on the outskirts, or in the urban fringe. It was mostly away from the downtown area, even though their downtown area is very large. Most of their growth was on the outer edges, and so they were just growing so fast that they had to do something to limit their traffic, because like Toronto, they were having lots of traffic issues, again leading to a lot of pollution problems. And so they had to fix these pollution problems in order for the government to continue to pay for their roads. And so one of the ways they did that was they developed a public transit system in MARTA, which was their local regional system for transportation. They enhanced that. They updated their buses so that they didn't pollute as much as well. They also came up with the high occupancy lane in the major cities, and the high occupancy lane means you had to have 2 or more people in your car to do that. This was to promote carpooling, and so hopefully this would reduce the amount of cars that were on the road. So that's in a nutshell what urban sprawl is, and that will cover Learning Target 5. Learning Target 6 is students can analyze the cause and effect of urban sprawl in the U.S. Very much related to what we just used. You need to know the terms public transit, which is bus system, subways, even taxis. These are ways that people can get around without having to use cars. Cincinnati is putting one in the streetcar, and we talked about that, and they already have a bus system, but now they're going to put in streetcars. The bus system that we referred to as an example was TANK, which is the Transit Authority of Northern Kentucky. Another word you need to know is mixed-use development. This is where you have a business and residential area in the same building. The first floor would be a business like a restaurant or a store, whereas all the people would be living above that. And then another one would be infill. Infill is the reusing of land that has either been run down or gone out of business. We have lots of examples of this throughout Grant County, as lots of buildings are reused. For example, the old Walmart building has been turned into what is now the Old Star Mall, and there's a Tractor Supply that has also moved onto that property and opened up a new store that's been quite successful. Other examples would include where infill is needed would be the current Food Lion building, where it is now blocked off because that property is being kind of run down, and so that would be an example of a place where infill is needed. If you're familiar with these vocabulary terms, you're going to be a lot better off and ready for being successful on this test. So you need to know what mixed-use development is, infill, and public transit. So you also need to think about the role-playing game that we went through, and this is essentially what would a environmentalist say in regards to a problem? What would a smart growth advocate say in regards to a problem? And those guys would prioritize saving the environment no matter what the cost is to the people, whereas somebody who's a suburban housing developer and builds homes for a living, that particular person just wants to make money, and so they would not feel the same way about the environment as the environmentalist. They would have the opposite opinion. And so would somebody who's trying to keep the pricing of houses down. And so think about what people who oppose sprawl, what their feelings would be, what they would say, and then also people who would be more likely in favor of urban sprawl, because one thing that we talked about during the classroom was that growth is good, and generally it's good for your tax base. However, you do want to grow smartly, and you have to find a way to balance the two. This summarizes Learning Targets 5 and 6 for Unit 3. I hope you feel more prepared. Good luck.